The reason that I'm running for office is
And you're Betty Jo Gravine, right?
Joe Gravine. I was born and raised here in Lac du Flambeau, and I was a former council member, but I found it was taking up, at the time, I didn't have enough staff at my commodity program, so it was my decision, and then I also got my two great-grandchildren that came to live with me. And they're in Lakeland Union High School, so I gave up that to help them out. And families always come first, no matter where we are. And but the reason I decided to run is because I think I have common sense, no nonsense, but I'm the only candidate. And
Proud of you.
I don't know where everybody is, but I think they're at a different,
Really?
I have the knowledge. Should I read my statement here that I?
You sure can.
It says, I have the knowledge required to make decisions in reference to social service, legal issues, health referrals. Prior to my work with the tribe, which began in 1980, I worked for Indian Health Service as a dental assistant. That was my very first job. Then I went to the Wisconsin Indian Legal Services. I was a legal secretary for the Council on Criminal Justice for 9 years. Then I went to Nicolay for 2 years, and then I came back and applied for the commodity position as director, and I've been there ever since, being 33 years. But during that time, I served on various boards. I was appointed to the Wisconsin Equal Rights Council by the governor, and I served on that for 3 terms. And I served on the Nicolay Board of Directors for 3 terms, Lac du Flambeau Center Board, and I currently serve on the National Food Package Review Committee for USDA for the food distribution programs, and also the Midwest Nutrition Advisory Board. I'm presently part of the drug court that's been implemented for our tribal members. And Wallace County and the tribe are working to promote a life that will help keep our people out of jail if they want to participate. And I just want to see a healthier lifestyle here in a healthier community, wellness. So,
Miigwech.
Thank you, Betty.
was that 2 minutes or 3 minutes?
That was fine.
That was plenty. I'm just really quick, I would like to thank everybody for coming out. Obviously, we didn't have the turnout that we anticipated or expected, but as Indian people, we kind of roll with the punches and we just go with the flow. So I appreciate Ms. Gravine coming out. We have Judge Colby. We have the Christensen family represented, the Sawyer family. Macker's here. I see Mr. Burgess is here. Mr. Jack, and also a new addition to our staff on the tribal side of things is Mr. Ryan Champagne, and he's going to be heading up the state of emergency affairs as the facilitator, and I expect exciting things coming from his office. So again, I'd just like to thank everybody for coming. Ms. Gravine came. I think that she needs to be afforded the time, and so I'll just go ahead and I'll just ask the questions, and she has a right to respond, and if anyone else has questions when we're done with the pre-submitted questions, we'll be glad to field those. So you pretty much summed up the first question, that was, you know, what have you done? How many tribal, there is one question, how many tribal council meetings have you been to in the last year, would you say?
Oh, probably, I would have to say, maybe 10, 11. But I'm they have meetings without posting them, so I don't know when there's a meeting going on, it's like, well, I was saying.
And that's one of our duties in the communications department, is to try and streamline that, and we're doing our best to do that. And hopefully with some more cooperation and just making sure that those communication paths are open, that we can provide better meeting notice, let people know what's going on in the community, and that's one of our big initiatives. Betty, I'm just going to grab a mic for you so we don't have to battle with sound.
Well, there was something running there.
I'll let you use this one, okay?
It's okay.
Can I?
Okay, our second question that was submitted. Do you support the state of emergency? Why?
Yes, I support the state of emergency because look how many people we've lost in the past year. Young, I mean, it's a sad state when, and why? Well, for that reason. Yes, we need a healthier community here, and the drugs are getting more and more dangerous, and that's just working. I've learned a lot with the state of the drug court. We went to a week's real rigorous training, and Judge Nielsen was our lead person there, and it was like being in school, and we couldn't be late. We had to attend every session, and which was good. And it was the Vilas County and the tribe. Alice Sluyer and I were part of that, and probation and parole, and we really formed a good bond there and understanding of one another also. And then we were fortunate to get Mr. Ryan over there, and we hired him, but the tribe stole him now, so.
That's what I heard. I think the tribe's very fortunate to have
They
him
are,
on board.
they are.
Okay, the third question would be, do you support the recent banishments?
I support the banishment, but I would have done it in a different way. I would have, it was kind of a bam, and nobody knew, the general population didn't know that they were doing this. So that was,
I have a question regarding that. Betty, maybe you can answer it.
Can you speak up, please?
Okay, as far as the banishment goes, shouldn't there have been an ordinance in place in order to enforce that? And how do they go about enforcing?
a tribal ordinance.
Yeah, if there's no tribal ordinance regarding that to enforce it?
Well, I guess that's where, I think they were going by the Constitution, where they have the powers to do things like that. If maybe Judge Colby could answer that a little bit better, but
Well, I want to remind everyone that they were non-tribal members that were not actually banished, but removed from the reservation. We don't actually have a banishment statute in place, and if they were tribal members, it probably would have been a different story, but they were non-tribal members, so the use of the term banishment is probably a little misleading to you.
I think it is. I think
yeah, because we don't need those people that are actively selling.
No, they've come onto our reservation and they can't obey our laws. We have every right to exclude them. That's what it was an exclusion. But anyway, I'm not running for council.
Is there anything in the future that maybe there could be an ordinance set up? Because I think in order to enforce that, you have to have an ordinance, even if it's non-tribal. I mean, you can't. How would they-
They banished people before, the guy that
But do you think that that's just the beginning as far as too much control for tribal government to start banishing people. I remember when they wanted to banish me because of the GNU, when I stood up for I and others stood up for, against that bond issue. They wanted to banish me, and I think that's pretty scary when you think about it, and I don't think maybe banishment should have been the word that they use.
Right.
In order to
Every reservation has the right.
keep people from.
Okay.
Thank you, Goldie. The fourth question on the list. How do you propose helping those members seeking treatment for drug or alcohol addictions?
Well, I've been doing that all my life with my own family, but I can't, we need to have good AODA issues, and we have to look at those people as not those people, but as tribal people that they don't know they have an addiction. And you can't mistreat them just because they're, and some of them are so lost and involved in the drugs right now that it's, I mean, I see just running the laundromat, it's become a haven, and they try to unlock the door and pretend it's locked, so they were actually sleeping in there a few nights. And but it's going to take a whole community to address that, and not frown on people that when they're asking for help. I mean, it's altogether different than when they're asking for an ambulance ride down to the hospital to get some pain pills. But when they're actually asking for help, they need to be, no matter, I mean, and there's a lot of, it doesn't have to be all tribal dollars. It can be state dollars. So it's, there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. And the people that are operating those programs need to be a little bit more sympathetic to them.
Thank you.
Being a drug addict, I've seen them.
I have a question for Betty regarding that, if I may.
Sure, go ahead, Goldie.
Where and whose responsibility is that to apply for more money? Because obviously it's going to take a whole lot of money for a treatment center or something on that line.
Whose responsibility would it be to seek funding dollars for increased treatment, I think is the question.
It definitely would have to be the federal government. They would have to sanction it and sign off on the.
And maybe appoint somebody to go after those dollars?
Yep, I think we have one appointed already.
Oh.
Ryan Champagne.
I introduced Mr. Champagne, I think, right before you came in. So Mr. Champagne is the new state-of-the emergency facilitator for the tribe, and he's going to work in, I guess, streamlining the whole, all the issues that we're discussing. Thanks, Betty. Number 5, if elected, what do you believe your role is as a council member?
The role of a council member is to become knowledgeable about all the programs and be a decision maker, not a ruler. And listen to the membership.
Thank you. The 6th question we took. How will you deal with the ongoing issue of tribal council meeting stipends? And do you support the idea of a paid or salaried council?
First of all, no, I don't support the idea of a paid or salaried council. It just, I don't know how will you deal with the ongoing issue of, I think it's just a runaway issue right now with the budget. And getting paid $1,000 to go to a sweat lodge in the cities is, it's not acceptable. And there's a lot of travel that it's just out of control. And for myself personally, I think we should go back to the old way of what we used to have. People used to get $25 a meeting. You should be willing to serve, and I guess I'm kind of partial on that because I'm a single person. I don't have any dependents, and it just goes for taxes anyway. So, I mean, I would gladly serve if we got $100 a month. Money's not the issue. It's not why I'm running. It's I just want to see this community get healthier here with this, the drug issues and the violence that's going on here. It's getting out of hand.
Thank you. Question number 7. What are your strategies for the separation of powers? And I guess let me just elaborate a little bit on that. Meaning removing the council from the business and judicial arms of the tribe.
My strategy would be to try to convince the council that we have administration, we have the judicial part, and you can't play politics with the judicial part of the tribe. The same way with law enforcement. It should be all altogether separate. Be supportive, but not ruling them.
Thank you. We did have 2 questions on the list, so I'm going right down the list that were directed specifically for our secretarial candidates. So we'll forego those. And I have 3 questions that were submitted just this morning. What is the treasurer's position? Well, again, this is for the treasurers, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit on it. I'll just modify the question. It was initially, what is the treasurer's position on the overspending that has occurred this term for council's travel? And you did address that. Is it the treasurer's job to see that this doesn't occur halfway through the budget year? And if not, who is monitoring this? When council people have already overspent only 6 months into the year. So I guess to wrap up the question is, again, do you have any idea on how to curb this overspending that the question poses or alludes to, that there's overspending that's happening on the council level?
Well, for one thing, we need to have people on the council that are going to be supportive of reining in and hold back the spending. I would, and I'm not just saying this just for people to think I'm trying to buy anybody's vote or anything, but I would rather see the membership get a bigger per capita, let them get the stipend. And I think there's room that in that budget there with that, I don't know what the amount of money is. I think it was like 900,000 or something. We take half of that and add it to our per cap payment. I mean, that's all some of these people have to live for, is look forward to. So, but that, yeah, that would, you need a council that's going to work towards that. You know,
As I've seen in the past, it's one person can't do it.
Right.
Although the fire does stuff. A spark can ignite a flame and can ignite a fire. So we'll move on to question number 2 that was submitted this morning. And again, you've alluded to it and spoke briefly about it. And the question is, I'll read it just how it is. How many council people would be in favor of less monies for the council and more for per capita to tribal members? And you just addressed that. Question number 3, what was the amount spent for, and I know you may or may not know this, I should say, let me rephrase that. You may or may not know this, I don't know. But the question is, what was the amount of money spent for the golf outing that the membership is hearing about? And where was that in the budget?
I didn't know about it until, I guess they were on their way down there. So I had no idea that there was a tournament. If it's healthy activities, I guess it's all right, but there should be some kind of planning done well ahead of time so that people wouldn't question it. And I also have a comment about the memorials that we have for, I guess they had a baseball memorial here, and I think that the family should be sponsoring that with a little bit, money from the tribal council. They have some input into it, but not fund the whole. I don't know, maybe it's rumors, I don't know, but I understand there was $4,000 given as cash. So I'm very much against that. So,
And who's supposed to oversee that? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Goldie.
And who's supposed to oversee that in particular?
well, I would hope the treasurer would.
The question was, who is supposed to oversee that as far as, I guess, a donation or sponsoring an event? And you believe the treasurer would?
Yeah, if the input should come and it should go back to the whole council, I would say. I mean, because you got 10 council people and they overrule something, it's kind of hard to. Same way with the chairman over there, it's, I mean, they can overrule and it's, so that's why you need, quality people on the governing board.
Thank you. There's another part to that question. And again, I'll just read the question as is, verbatim. We need to hear about these expenditures, especially at election time. We expect that common sense be an important part of council spending. And I guess that's, more or less of a remark than a question, but if you'd like to allude to that.
I don't know what spending is at election time. I don't know what, I don't know what it means.
I think it's, from my take on it, is that they're just saying that, there's always a heightened sense of awareness right around election time. Election season always brings out questions, and I think that that's kind of what the question is alluding to. If anybody in the crowd has any questions, I'd be glad to field them. Goldie?
I think in this day and age, we should be requiring a sober government. And that's not happening within this council. I've seen it myself that, there's things happening with our council people that should not be happening because we look up to our leadership. We want them to be, positive role models for our young people and for, our community. And whether they're family or not, I don't know. I guess I ask the community to really look at your candidates and see, and ask yourselves if they really are good role models and that you want them to lead this community in a good and positive way. And so I guess that would be my question for Betty. How important do you think it is to have sober government?
Betty, how important do you think it is to have a sober government?
I think it should be mandatory. That's what I think. I've heard rumors, but I can't address them because I don't know that for a fact. So, but they should be. And I do have a comment though about the state of emergency. I don't think it's going to be that costly because we have programs right now that are
part of the state of emergency. And I think that's what the intent of the state of emergency was, to just beef them up a little bit, or a lot, because the potpourri is, it's shouldn't be here.
Yes, Judge Colby?
Do you think that mandatory drug testing should be implemented for council members?
It is.
The question was, do you think that mandatory drug testing should be implemented for council members?
Who said it is?
I did. There is a resolution out there, once they get into office, they are supposed to be tested.
Well, I'm asking, the question is whether she approves of it.
Oh, yes, I agree that, I mean, all the employees have to be, and they're supposed to be the governing board, so they should be tested. And,
I've got a question for you
Ms.
guys.
Christensen?
With the state emergency and that, we have a lot of young people that are trying to clean their act up and stuff. And they've been sober and stuff and clean for months and months and months. And they figured they're clean enough to apply for a job. So I was wondering if there is a way the tribe would go for segmented drug tests to see that these people are trying out there and stuff, for them to be able to get a job and move on and stuff.
The question is, would,
Like a 30, 60, 90-day drug test to make sure they're clean.
Segmented.
are you in favor of a segmented drug test, meaning they only go back a certain amount of time? Because people that are in recovery often face that obstacle where they may have quit 60 days ago, 90 days ago, yet when they go to apply for a job, the test may come back positive because it's within that certain period of time. Although they have taken steps to change their lives and live healthy and are clean at the present, they still face that stumbling block.
absolutely, I am in favor of that. And I learned a lot when I went to Phoenix to that training session that we had. And I'm all in favor of it. And I think that HR would be the department that should.
Because there is a company that the tribe or casino was using, Psychomedics. They do segment it. It shows. You can cut your hair, whatever, and it'll show you when you last used and stuff.
And I also learned that from Mr. Ryan over there too, about, I didn't know the first thing how to read those. Well, I've never read one, but it was explained to us.
I mean, you know, nowadays there's different ways, you know, and Ryan probably knows too. Those tests, different tests and stuff can be, you can cheat on them. There's ways of
Oh,
getting
there, I
past it.
understand there are cheaters.
You know, so, but if you do a segmented and stuff like that, you'd be able to catch them down the road and stuff.
Well, I think that's all some of the people need, is just a chance to get
Chance to
started
get
working,
started, yeah.
and once they get that paycheck. I mean, it's, I had summer youth out there at the Carnegie program this summer, and just the excitement of getting their first check, I said, was just very touching tonight.
What do you
yes, I
think
do agree.
about building up the FRC some more? And more counselors in there, or people to help with the problem and stuff?
You mean I
Or
agree?
qualified people that know, because I know the doctors and stuff are even having a hard time now, even trying to treat the people because they don't know what to give them and stuff when they do go to the hospital and that.
I guess the question is, Tula, that to Ms. Gravine is, what are your thoughts on adding staff, building the staff at the Family Resource Center so that they can handle a certain caseload? Because I know right now that They're stretched kind of thin over there. I don't know intimately the details, but I do know that there's a waiting list in certain circumstances to see a counselor. So I think that what Ms. Christensen is saying is, what are your thoughts on adding staff or building up that staff with qualified individuals to help with that drug issue here?
Well, I'd be all in favor of it. There shouldn't be a waiting list. And no matter how many it takes, I mean, when people need help, they need it.
Yes.
So,
Another question. About how many families does your program help a year that help with energy and gas?
How many families does your program, the food distribution program, how many families does that help out every year? Do you have any idea?
I wish Lucy was here. She's my numbers person, but there's got to be at least, well, with our food program, I usually have about a total of 300 families, but the food stamp program, they can't have both of them. But we did apply for the Citizens Energy, and that comes from a Citgo Foundation. And I was at a conference out in, I think we were out in Rapid City, and they asked me how the tribe's Citizens Energy program was going, and I didn't know what they were talking about. So they sent me the information, and I think that was, I don't know, Tom, how many years ago was that? About 7, 6, 5? So we had to go through a lot of statistics and data. We had to, I mean, there was a lot of work to initially apply for it, but we got it. And every year we get, in January, we usually get our funding. And that's probably 500, almost all the families on the reservation. We do that all voluntarily. I mean, Lucy doesn't get paid for doing that, but we operate it because we saw a need for that. And the energy assistance program, I mean, you can get help from that, but it's not as, but it's a one-time, once a year. And then I also do the Salvation Army, and that's, we do that voluntarily. So we probably see almost every family in Flatland on the reservation, both tribal and non-tribal.
I wanted to say that because I wanted to make a point that you know what families go through, like every family. And
Exactly.
not to judge people, to help everybody out. And you're the kind of people we need on our council.
Well, thank you. I mean, there's a lot of people, I know a lot of people don't like me, but I don't treat them any different. If they're freezing, I said, need service of if they're, you know. But thanks, Melissa.
Yes, Goldie?
Along with that, Betty, do you have any ideas on how to, if you were to get on the council, what you could do to, what should I say? I guess there's so much favoritism in programs and with council people. Do you have any solutions to remedying that? Because, I mean, it's really evident that, you know, if they don't like you or your last name or whatever, that, you know, I think we need a more equal system when it comes to the services that the tribe provides.
Question is, if you were to be elected to the council, do you have any solutions or ideas on how to curb or eliminate favoritism, nepotism?
I don't know, it would, that's what's wrong with the community right now. Everybody is, not everybody. Majority of the people are they hold grudges from with different families, and we shouldn't be that way. So, I mean, I don't know how many people go to visit one another. I mean, when we were growing up, that was the main thing that we did. We went around and visited people, and people lived in those old homes, and some of these families, I said, you could eat off their floors, and that they didn't have any, all they had was wood floors. And they helped each other. And that's one of the reasons why I like to be involved in different things, because we're all related one way or the other, and we should be, I mean, there's just attitudes that change.
We also have an ethics code within the tribal government that I think maybe not enough council people read that to know that, they really need to take that into heart and use it when they represent us as a tribe.
Is that a statement, or?
Yeah,
I think that was a
that was
statement.
just
Okay.
another, that was just something to, but I think there has to be some solutions to that, because they represent all of us. And, it's just not happening. I mean, if you're vocal, or if you have questions for council people, a lot of times, they take that as negative. And it shouldn't be that way, I mean, there's many of us that really want genuine, sincere leadership and answers to our questions, and, maybe some reasonable solutions. I mean, they're there to lead us, and, we depend on them for that.
Yes, Adrian.
Yeah, just a statement, I guess. Just that, say, like some of the job hiring and people applying for jobs and screening people for jobs and qualifications and stuff like that. And, just like to say, yeah, sometimes I feel discouraged because, I've been clean and sober for 9 years. I can pass the drug test. I got a 2-year degree, associate's degree, and I've been working off and on here and there. And I love Lac du Flambeau, and I have the choice to leave, but I don't, because I believe so much in our in our culture, in our people, in our community. But and another part of that is, like, if I leave and I'm around too many non-natives, I get mean and angry. But I think we all do, because the thing is, because we all feel a connection here to Lac du Flambeau, whether we get along this week or next week. We still feel a strong connection here to Lac du Flambeau. That's why we still choose to stay and live here, even though we don't like each and every one of our council members or whatever the case is. But I'm still trying. I've been working 2 hours away for like 2 years. That's a 4-hour trip there and back. And now I had to quit my job earlier this year because I couldn't afford it no more. And I still have hope and faith in our tribe, but there's so many rumors, and I don't see everything that's on black and white, and I don't see everything that the tribal council does. But there's some hope and faith there too, and sometimes it's discouraging rather than encouraging. And I guess. And I applied for different jobs here in Flambeau at the tribal clinic, and everywhere here in Flambeau. It's like, gets to that point where I get tired of putting in applications, because it's all who you're related to or who you're friends with or whatever. And I don't know, I kind of just go with the flow and try not to, hold them grudges myself. And, I guess be like a duck in the water, let the water run off your back, that kind of thing, because I've learned that in recovery, as in drugs and alcohol, and AA meetings, because you let go of those grudges, you continue to go further up ahead down the road, instead of, holding on to, all these other things, and then you go back to drinking and using or whatever it is. So I've come a long way in my life, and I just see so many other things. There's so many other things that happen here in Flambeau, good and bad all the time, and I don't know. We always keep talking about change, and you help me out. You help my family out a lot too. As they always say, "Chibi Gwitch," to people that do the right jobs. And I remember this is pretty hurtful, because at one of the council meetings, I forget what it was for, but it was a few years ago, and my mom and dad were trying to go for something, and they always taking care of the basic bills. And we don't drive around in fancy cars or anything like that, go on trips or trainings, but we just needed extra little help this one time, and we turned to our tribal council, and here they turned around. Somebody on the tribal council, I don't remember who, but they said to my mom and said, "Oh, aren't you on one of those programs?" "Oh, yeah." But, every program ain't going to help you through life or whatever. But, anyways, they called her like a program user. And she was out there trying to work and cleaning houses and doing cleaning at cabins and stuff like that for side cash just to get by. She wasn't doing drugs like some other people, but still get away with it in like the Flambeau. And I hear a lot of things going on out there, but I'm not trying to point fingers or anything like that. I'm just saying, those are some of the things that go on. Some people slide under the radar and some people don't, and some people get called out like you're a program user or something. And that was pretty hurtful coming from tribal council, and that was a few years ago, not recent, maybe 8 years ago or something. But I just got sick to my stomach. It even makes me sick thinking about it. That was like 8 years ago. So, just to be treated like that in a tribal council room and from tribal council was just pretty bad. And one time out of the blue, try to ask for a little bit of help. Could have just redirected us a little way instead of shaming us in the council room. So, thanks, Miigwech.
Thank you, Adrian. I just want to build on that real quick. A quick comment building on that is like, when you're talking about the choice to live here and be a part of this community, or go out into the world, into the greater world as some people call it, in the real world as sometimes it's termed, we have that choice. But I look around this room and I see every person I see here, including my counterpart, Ms. Swisher, who's a new addition here. I see every one of us is somebody that loves this community. And I think it's people like you, Adrian, and everybody here that took time out tonight to come here, that are willing to fight and work for this community in a good way. So I appreciate your comments. We've all had our rough times. Nothing is guaranteed in life. Tomorrow, we don't know what tomorrow may bring. And that's why we have to be grateful for each and every day we have here. So I appreciate your comments.
I just wanted to say that what he's talking about, that's called lateral oppression and violence. It's kind of a new thing in Indian country right now, but they are starting to have conferences and trainings to educate Indian people, because that is happening in government where like certain families get help, or like one person's made to look like the bad guy, and they are constant, and nobody can get ahead in life. And it starts like when the people who are oppressed, they start oppressing each other, but it's worse than they've been oppressed by not letting them get jobs in their own community and making them feel bad about themselves. And that's why our young people are so lost, because before we used to work together and help each other out, like what Betty does. Like that, or Goldie asked, how are you gonna curb, favoritism in your programs? I think Betty shows a good job of doing that now by helping everybody till the money runs out. And she don't say, I'm gonna save this because my family might need this later. She knows how hard, like, it is in our community with our young people not working and families, and, we need to start looking at them people and employing them. Then we'll be able to quit paying their bills and have more money for better programs and healthier people. And give people like this guy a chance, instead of screening through the process of employment and the program managers picking, oh, I think this guy will work better, or this is my friend, she needs a job. So I do see that a lot. I was on a hiring committee, and we don't hire the people who could do the best job for our tribe. We hire who we want. We kind of cheat ourselves out of that because we're paying a top salary, maybe for somebody who might not be a tribal member, or have a degree, when we're overlooking people, tribal members who have degrees. Just how can we make education important to our children if we don't hire our own people? How can we hold a truancy ordinance when they don't see education as important? Because they look at their parents and they see them like struggling to make it. That's part of poverty too, Like our kids can't think about school. I had somebody from Lakeland tell me today, a young man couldn't think about doing algebra because he was worried if his mom or dad were going to be home after school, if he was going to have a place to sleep. Why do we create hardships on our own people? It just don't make sense.
Thank you, Melissa. Ms. Ninham, question?
Betty, I'd like to know what your take is on the sober transitional living home. Do you support it yet? We're looking at possibly turning it into an inpatient residential treatment. What is your thoughts on it?
Just for the crowd, if I can, what are your thoughts, Ms. Gravine, on the sober transitional living house on the north end of Pokegama Lake? I believe Ms. Ninham also said they are looking at turning it into residential treatment facilities. Do you have any thoughts on that? And if so, do you support that sober transitional living house?
Absolutely. I believe I was one of the original when the tribe bought that place, and that was always what I thought it would eventually turn out to be. But I know that the trials and whatever you have to go through out there, because people want to go out there, but then they fall off the wagon and then they can't stay there anymore, which I wholeheartedly agree, because people are going to have to, there's got to be rules and regulations there, and I would support that wholeheartedly.
When they get a chance to, to come back if they're trying.
Okay, because I think we donated, I think that was before you was, I don't know if you were there or not, but I know Judge Colby had brought some things and we donated, and I donated a lot of things for that home.
I know I come in and there'd be a box of tissues, some clothes, and I wouldn't know where they came from, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah, but yes, I would support that. And it doesn't have to all come out of the tribal coffers. There's a lot of state and federal programs out there for that. So that's...
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Mr. Wildcat.
Hey, how do you feel about the tribal council being immune and not setting the example for our people to take a drug test?
I never agreed with them. There's, everybody should be taking it.
How come steps are not being taken to have our tribal council follow the rules the same as all these programs and to get federal funds, what makes them immune?
The people sitting on the governing board, I would say.
I don't think Ms. Ravine can answer that question because she's not on the council,
I know.
but I understand your question.
But I wholeheartedly support everybody
But if
taking
you
the
were
drug test.
elected to the council, would you be interested in supporting something like that?
Definitely. We argued about that when I was on the council once before. And they say that that's their tradition or their culture. And you can't hide behind that when you're going to be serving on a, you got to set an example.
That's exactly.
There's other ways of doing a drug test than if you don't want to cut your hair.
Right.
Any other questions?
I want to make a comment to, about Adrian. Is he still here?
He was.
Question over here, Christine.
Was there a question over on this side of the room?
I'd just like to probably just for the record purposes, I want to let everybody know, you know, I like Betty, support the fact that if you run for any office or any position for the tribe, you should be the first one to go and become drug-free. Secondly, the full council is already, they've went and got, they've got the hair follicle test. It went through Janine. I asked personally, she had indicated that everybody did take a drug test. But that shouldn't be a sort of like you said, Bill, a mandate to push it. It should be an automatic. If you're gonna lead this tribe, then you go for it. You should be the first one, you know, to wherever, to the casino or, I think at that time, HR, to be there to get your drug test. So I fully agree with that concept of, you know, having a drug-free place. I agree with that young lad over there to talk about how we can resolve these your type of things. Betty and I talked this afternoon at lunch. How are we gonna deal with some of our people that, my own nephew, if he don't get his act together, he's gonna die, number one, by a beating by our young people in the community, or the alcohol's gonna get him so bad, he ain't gonna wake up, you know, or a vehicle's gonna hit him. And these your people just got back from Konania or wherever they gotta get. So we gotta have another opportunity to take them to another level where there is no alcohol. There is maybe an opportunity. I don't know that. I've been, sadly to say, I've had relatives that have been in that position, but I guess if I was a major alcoholic, I would probably understand it a hell of a lot better. But that's why we need the community to get together. And that's why we need leadership. It's really sad that Betty sits here by herself. I was hoping that we would see other leaders explaining to the general populace that came to ask questions. I get those questions every day. I got my secretary here. Sometimes we don't have a time. People are lined up to ask some questions or get some answers. And I guess I hope that this year board take a look at that. You know, we're a multi-million-dollar company today, far greater than when your dad was there. I can remember there was hardly any monies to run tribal government.
But we don't have them ethics anymore.
And I agree with you.
We're richer in that way, but we're a lot poorer.
I agree with you
in
100%. But, you know,
Lost them.
we need to make that change. And by changing that, you need to get proper people and hold their feet to the fire. I mean, I, as a tribal chairman, can only recommend. Only do I I think I broke 2 ties this year. They weren't very positive on some people, but that was my thought and that was my direction. But overall, the council are the ones that make that direction. And you definitely need to take a look at your candidates that are out there. I mean, I agree. I heard that was a $10,000 figure for the golf outing.
Yes.
That was a 10,000 or a little bit more for the outing that went to Myrtle Beach or whatever the hell to play baseball. We could have used that money far greater here. But, you know, I said that. I can't vote. I can say that and make my conscience feel better. But it's the general populace of this tribe to stand up and say, hey, we're not gonna take it anymore. We need to get people in there that's gonna work for the best interest. We've got a lot of good things going in the community. It's not easy to do that because, you know, it seems like everybody wants to get paid, you know, to go to this meeting, that meeting, or whatever. And I suggested to alleviate that, I can tell you this, that make them paid positions. Make them live up to their responsibility to the people. And I'll tell you this, and you're gonna get a lot of people, you know, would want to be a politician because they say, I can do a better job than they can because, you know, of this dollar amount that you should pay those people. I encourage education. I think it's important. We're seeing a lot of people do a lot of good things, but it's not going to happen overnight, people, I can tell you that. We just had a young man die of that popery here. It's really sad. They accept it in this community. I talk to different people that know that they do it yet. Why don't they pick up the call? Call my house so I can tell somebody, because I'm dead against that type of stuff. Betty is dead against it. We need that help, people. And we need that help with good council people too, I can tell you that much. So I'll leave it at that. Lee Rich.
I got a
Thank
comment,
you, Mr.
Tom.
Chairman.
You made a statement a little while ago about helping your people and stuff like that, and you stated these 3 different things that happened over the weekend with baseball, golf, and everything else. Thousands of dollars to send these guys for fun. And I had a son last week in front of the council asking for $1,000 to get his business started. He was completely turned down because they were out of money.
You were out of a loan fund.
You're still out of money. She kept on saying it, no matter what you
Yeah,
had.
I'm
I
just-
say, why don't you put in resolution funding? Why don't you do that? I'm not gonna sit up there and quarrel with council and
I
stuff no more.
understand that.
We're turning to our family now. And that's the people of this town.
With the alcohol and drugs, it's, the parents of these little children have to be held accountable. There's, the parenting, I mean, what they were talking about, this kid not wanting to, couldn't do his test or whatever. I would get calls at 11 o'clock at night to go down and at the high school and pick up these kids. And they were the problem kids in this community. The kid was on the honor roll. And I was so proud of that young man. And he was a runner. He did football. And I was, my friend came home and said that he flipped out with the athletic coach. And he just lost it because that's the same thing he was worried about. And he said, you have no idea what I have to go home to. He says, the kind of home that I live in. And I would have taken him in, you know, in a heartbeat, but I already had 10 people living in my house. And and I told the council last Friday night, was it last Friday or the Friday before? Sometimes that's the only time I have to work is by myself is at the warehouse at night, and my cell phones don't work in there. But when I came out, the phone was going off, and my grandson had gotten hurt at the soccer game, and he was at Howard Young. So I went over there, and I went in, and there was 4 Flambeau police officers there, and so I didn't know what was going on. And but my first responsibility was to check on Brandon because they thought he had a broken femur bone. Fortunately, it wasn't, but this one parent came in and she said her granddaughter overdosed, and the kid was in grade school. And so she was talking, and she didn't know what to do. And her mother is kind of way out there too. And so then here's another little girl, but her parents came after her. And I can tell when somebody's not in the right mind. But both the mother and the father came after this other little girl, and they were just totally out of it. And I couldn't figure out why they weren't arrested for coming there to pick their child up. And they were stoned, and they had to drive down there. I don't know, but then here was another guy that had just gotten out of treatment. Here he comes wheeling down the hall in a wheelchair, and police officers taking him over to Wildwood County. So my first thought was, all these tribal health dollars being used for that purpose when people can't get referrals from the clinic. And there's going to be some priorities straightened out here, and I think it's up to the tribal government to mandate something here. I know they have parenting at the Family Resource Center. I think Indian Child Welfare is doing parenting. These parents need to be responsible. And on the other hand, with this truancy, I'm totally against, I voiced my opinion at General Fund to put $240,000 in that budget for a truancy officer. I said, that's not the tribe's responsibility. That belongs to the grade school. And I was criticized for it, but I still feel that strong. And they had an emergency session at the training at the school today for at the school shooting or whatever, so all the kids were out early, and Tony works over there at the custodian, and he showed me all the teams, and there's over 100 people working there, and no parents. There's a lot of, Bernadette works in the kitchen. There's Tony, Pat, Ellis, and Byron, and Chili Burgess are the only ones out of that whole school. And there's a couple hundred staff members on that staff. But no, they don't hire. How, if those parents were given a job to answer the telephone or do something, be a hall monitor or whatever, I said, these kids would feel proud that their parents were working at the school. And that's another whole different battle that we have to do is why we're all Native people here, the kids are, but yet these kids are going into the high school with the 4th and 5th grade reading level. It's not acceptable.
Goldie and then Melissa. Go ahead, Goldie.
Okay, I just wanted to ask Betty what her feelings were, or if she had any ideas or solutions to how the enrollment office, office works as far as some of the requests and things that are coming through that aren't being handled depending on, you know, who you are. I see people that have applied as far as that have changed their father's name or their grandfather's name who have passed on generations ago without even having any DNA testing or whatever. And yet, those who really do qualify aren't being accepted because of who you are or because you don't have friends in that office. Do you have any solutions to this? The council voted, I remember here when they first came into office saying that they were going to have the bureau come down and, you know, get everything straightened out. Well, I don't think that's happened, or at least we haven't heard anything. Do you have any solutions on how to remedy some of the attitudes and so forth in that enrollment office?
Not right out, not any immediate solutions, but, so you're talking about the enrollment.
The enrollment office and the procedures and the protocol and the way that, you know, I mean, the whole council voted to have the bureau come down and get all the records straight and put everything in order because it's so primitive in there. They don't have anything on CD-ROM. They don't have anything, you know, organized where they can just punch up. I mean, you have to. It's way.
Well, I don't know about, I imagine they could bring the records that's been at the Bureau for years and years, but I don't think the Bureau should, we should have people in there that are gonna work to try to.
Organization in there and something.
Yeah, some kind of organization.
Yes.
Because the council has the right to put anybody they want on the roll.
We did that and they never put her on, so.
Right.
When we were on the council, there was a lady whose sister was on, but she was gone to the service in those days and she didn't get on. Well, we voted as a council to put her on because it was only fair and right and she had the same mother and father, well, yet that has never been done.
It's too bad. It's sad is what it is. They took her out.
Melissa?
Well, I just wanted to say about the education thing we're talking about at the school. We need like people like you in the community to get on the school board. You know, I always tell young people, you don't need to be on the council to be a leader. We need people who are willing to stand up, kind of what you do in our community and be leaders. You know, you talked about it, just about the pay and all that. And, you know, like someone who's gonna stand up and speak up like Adrian, you know. But we need people on the school board to make some changes, like what they told us about some teacher's aide positions opening up down at AVW and MHLT, and they're encouraging tribal members to apply for their jobs. And you only need a high school or HSED, so that's, you know, if they're willing to open the doors down in Minocqua for our people, why can't we do it here in Lac de Flambeau?
That's exactly what I was talking about, because I forget what the percentage of kids in special ed with disabilities, and there's only 2, or maybe 1 tribal member that works in there, and they're all paraprofessionals. They're not, they don't need a license to get to work there. We just go through their training, and that there's a teacher there that supervises. But they're all from out of the community. There's no one, I mean, parents working up there.
The parents are kind of shut out from not, like, the school don't want them there, and that's the kind of feeling.
Well, they want to medicate them. That's the problem. And, I mean, they get big dollars for having special ed children. And a little attention, or, I mean, we had a couple parents there that refused to medicate their children. And, I mean, they're fine, but,
Adrian.
the more handicapped children you have, the bigger the funds that come in. So I have I can't say that. That's why but the first thing they want to do is give people, those little kids, I don't know if it's Adderall or some kind of medication so that they just sit there. It's pretty sad up there.
Well, you should run for school board.
I was on there, that's what they
They got rid of her.
got rid of me.
Thank you, Melissa.
That's how
We'll
it
take-
works, don't you know? Did you know there's over 40 students from Flambeau going over there to ABW? There's 100, over 100.
ADW and
MHLT and
MHLT, yeah.
We're going to take one last question. Go ahead, Adrian.
That's just another quick little statement for like, like tribal council and stuff is earlier this year, I was supposed to go down to Madison to, go protest against the mining stuff. I had a ride set up with some people from Bad River to go, and our tribal council was going the same day, and I had an emergency dental appointment that morning. Last minute they called, and so I had to cancel out my ride. So I thought, ask my tribal council, because I talked to Brooks, and Brooks told me to come to this meeting here, and it was at the casino. So all the tribal council members were gonna be at the casino for this meeting, and before the meeting can get started, Tom Olson over there said, "Hey, Adrian, why don't you catch a ride with those guys since you're in good with those guys, so good." So I thought that was kind of discouraging when you guys should be encouraging on that level, you know, because I did have a ride, but I just don't think that's council manners, leadership manners. So I just kind of wanted to say that much on that behalf, and I'm not holding no grudges or anything, just saying that, you know, hey, just wipe that off and move on and keep going on. But stuff like that, I mean, people hold on to them things for a while and for 10, 30, 20 years, however long, but I'm just saying things like that in Flambeau, especially from the council leadership, is just kind of, it's kind of bad, it's bad. So just kind of wanted to say that, and did find a ride anyways, and say like that. Thanks. Is there any matter management? No.
So it worked out for you.
Yeah, it did.
Good. One last quick question, Tula.
I want to put a smile on everyone's face here. We took a ride yesterday up north. And we took my great nieces up there to see on Legendary Waters and stuff, up the Red Cliff and stuff, and went picked apples. On the way home, went to Bad River, we stopped at Lake Road, went over by the lake and stuff. And there was a truck there, and this guy come up on a four-wheeler and his friend and stuff, and he parked everything, and he come over by us, and he introduced himself, and we introduced ourselves. He shook our hands and stuff. And he said, "Where are you from?" We said, "Flambeau." He said, "Cool." He says, "You know something?" He said, "You got some nice singers from Flambeau. Wonderful, wonderful singers." I said, "It had to be Tomahawk Circle." "Yeah, but," he said, "next time they need to wake up though before they get here, because their hair looks bedridden." But he stood there and he talked to us, and it was Mr. Wiggins. Mike Wiggins, chairman.
Chairman Wiggins.
And he didn't want to quit talking.
Yeah.
But it was getting dark, we were
Chairman,
gonna
I
get
like
back
that.
and stuff,
Yeah.
but it was really something.
Yeah, yeah.
He walked by us instead of just getting in his truck and leaving and stuff, you know,
Right.
but we happened to look up in the sky and there was a cloud. And it was a perfect formation of a feather.
It was, we all
Perfect.
took pictures,
She's
it
got
was like a
pictures
wing
of it.
feather, of a eagle feather.
And he had taken a picture of it when it was starting to form, and he showed us slide by slide. By the time he got to his third slide, it was a perfect formation of an elder gentleman.
Yeah, it's
Before it formed into the
awesome.
feather.
But yeah,
It was beautiful.
I think we've all experienced things like that let us know as Indian people
Yeah.
that there's more than meets the eye. There's more than what we can see. There's often more going on around us than we even want to know at times. And those instances reinforce, I think, a deep-rooted feeling in us of who we are and what we stand for. And so I think that's what's going to drive our community
Yep.
and get ourselves healthy and remind us and keep us humble, are things like that. And I just want to really just do a quick comment in closing. I'd like to thank everybody that came here. I know it didn't quite turn out as we expected, but it turned out just the way it was supposed to be. And I want to, from the bottom of my heart, thank Ms. Gravine for coming. And I really appreciate Chairman coming out and ICW in her personal affairs has taken the time to come here, Ms. Kristen Allen. I know that she does a lot in our community to help our young people and to help our families, so I want to recognize her. Miss Jeannie Wolf, our HR Director, thank you for coming. I know we have Judge Colby, Mr. Jack, Ms. Ninham, Goldie. I'd like to thank everybody, Mr. Wildcat. I'd like to thank all of you, and real quick, our council, and I think a lot of it goes to credit to Chairman Wilson in building those relationships with these other tribes. They've recently formed a Wisconsin Federation, Chippewa Confederacy or Federation, and I think that that's what we need also is that healing. And I know Mr. Jack is involved on the Constitution Committee. He has a theme he's working with, rebuilding Native nations, and that's what we need to do, is rebuild ourselves, because nobody's going to do it for us. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for coming, and exercise your vote, exercise your right, get out there tomorrow. Thank you.